Of being liquid, just having no real muscularity, just, everything's just dead, and the only thing keeping you up is your skeleton. You're just very floppy and very, you're getting pushed and you're just kind of leaning and coming back.
They would go sort of slowly in and start this feeding frenzy, but it really needed to be more like this.
Excuse me. I mean, it was just, a ridiculous thing to kind of suggest. But then being in there for the few hours we were in there and then going through it and learning and seeing what they were teaching us, it really helped. And even when I shot the scene, Peyton as an undead man, it was a tremendous help. More than what I thought it would be.
If we didn't go that deep with it, we never would have been able to go as far as we did on camera. The guys that we trained in boot camp really brought these characteristics to the set with them. Didn't matter what you threw at them.
We want each actor, each performer to be able to work and think with it and create their own individual undead. We also had a number of children on the set who were wonderful as well. We coached them at the undead boot camp.
They don't really seem that terrifying, but then when we were actually doing the scene and these little kids were so great, they just got really into it.
It's a city full of citizens and becomes a city full of undead. Each of those undead has their own specific style of moving.
It's really, really unnerving because there you are, this humanoid form appears that literally trying to suffocate you. Some of them are really, really horrifying.
As ugly as they ass is, that ought to scare the shit out of me.
I see you, mother.
It's great though, man. Watching makeup make these people up to make them look like they really zombies. They look real, man.
When this stuff is put on your face, you come to life in a certain way. Every kind of skin texture that you could imagine. And this would happen with the background players as well as the featured guys. And the featured guys got contact lenses as well, so that was extra cool.
It's very disturbing. It's very, you walk where all the trailers are, and you walk into makeup, and all of a sudden there's this guy. It's very scary.
When I first came to the movie, the first time I seen the zombie, I was like, hey. Okay, I'm gonna spit my shit out.
People who I think are heroes are the undead in this movie. All the different zombies that are just standing around, freezing their butts off in full undead makeup, with the wind blowing, some of them women in their nightgown. There's not enough assistants to bring everybody their jacket every single time they say cut. Besides the fact that we don't have enough porta potties for every single zombie to go to the bathroom after their hot cup of coffee.
Just an overall enthusiasm is definitely necessary because the going did get tough. There was technical issues that seemed unsolvable, and there was sleepless nights.
It was a huge job. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was thrilling. It's also very exciting, when you're working with a crew of well over 100 people and everything comes together.
Husbands killing wives, children killing parents.
Because in the end, that's what you're doing, man. You're working together to come out with this really scary product.
We felt after we were done this project, we felt like we could do just about anything.
When I first read the script, for me, it was quite exciting because it was full of anything you could dream of. I mean, it was science fiction, plus a little gore, little creatures, all melded together. I mean, that's quite exciting for production time because you now can open up your mind to all kinds of things.
With my help, just imagine what you can achieve.
I think for Paul Austerbury, this was a big challenge to create some of the sets that we had in this film. The designs and the ideas that he had was something that I don't know if you could read my mind. It was almost exactly what I was expecting.
When we're researching the movie, you basically cut a lot of pictures together and start presenting ideas in relationship to the script and various locations in the game. There was a lot of good stuff in the game that we could just take a look at, study, and then try to find similar locations, or take the idea behind that scene in the game and develop it based on our script and the locations that we found. The first film was very much underground, very much concrete, slick underground. So every time we had reference to elements of the Umbrella Corporation, I took the design cues from there. We kept it slick, we kept it very gray, concrete, cold.
The first one all took place underground in the hive. so it was very self-contained. We've now gone above ground. To do that, we basically have to take over a major North American city, which we've done with Toronto.
Toronto is a pretty good city for it, because Raccoon City is supposed to be this sort of middle American city, not too recognizable. It's sort of a generic, fabricated city. The architecture of Toronto could be parts of Chicago, bits of it could be like New York, but as a whole, it isn't either of those. It's a lot smaller. It's something that you can imagine could be a little more contained, like the script said. SARS hit Toronto quite badly in 2003, and the movie industry went way down. A lot of movies did not come. This was one of the few movies that actually did come.
Toronto has been remarkable. I can't believe any other city in the world would be as supportive. We have been filming outside City Hall for 2 weeks. We've had gunfire, helicopters.
We closed down a major bridge to a whole section of town that's pretty much the only artery there, and we closed it down for 3 days.
Shutting down blocks and blocks of city streets so that we can do running gun battles and fighting between the undead.
We could do anything in the city, destruction, flames, burning cars and all that, and that was one of the reasons that we shot it there.
The way it works in the art department is we read the script, we have some quick discussions with Alexander, and then I go away on my own and I sort of look at references that we've discussed, and I come up with certain sketches and then 3D ideas. And I've sort of modeled quite crudely in 3D on a computer program various schemes, several different schemes for a particular set. And then what happens is I'll bring Alexander in, we look at it, we look at the angles that we can see, whether we need a complete set or we need like 3 walls of a set.
With the help of computer, he always managed to, in 3-dimensional, show me how the sets were going, how the actors were going to act inside certain sets, or showing me camera angles that I could create later in real life.
It was great working with Alexander because he's a very visual guy. We'd be looking over here and he'd go, well, what about if we go over there and look from there? And, I mean, he was fearless. He'd always be hanging off the edge of the building where it'd be top of the skyscrapers, looking, saying, oh, let's do this crazy move, moving the camera down here or having her run down the side of the building. When we came to the exterior City Hall, we were looking in the city for a location that gave us a very open plaza, concrete gray, steel, very cool colors. We had massive helicopters flying in that literally were able to fly in. We had a little helicopter gunships flying around, buzzing around, and we had to have a safe place to do that. It was amazing that we were able to do that actually at the Toronto City Hall. It was very gracious of them to let us do such a thing. There was an important scene in the game where there's a helicopter gunship strafing across a glass corridor with Alice running through it and then diving out of the way at the last second. But it didn't have this corridor or anything like that. So I looked at the existing thing and we created our own complete corridor. We added these massive concrete piers and a big, long, curved glass corridor with water in it for reflections. And all the glass broke in the same timing as the helicopter strafing across, with the stunt girl running through the corridor, exactly like the scene in the game. Sometimes the design had to alter a little bit to allow for certain stunt rigs, fire things, explosions. Not always just about the look of the set for me, it's about everyone else's requirements. Because a lot of departments have to be involved before the final design can be executed. And once we've settled on that, then it goes down to the construction place in the church. This is the big opening for Mila's entrance into the church. She crashes through in a motorcycle. We tried different candy glass, different types of plastic in front of things. I had a real stained glass artist draw up a watercolor that we then scanned, created basically a giant slide of each of the panels. And then from that, we stuck those behind the vac-form plastic that gave us that texture. We layered that on top of the slide, and then on top of that, we put the fake leaded glass look. And then behind that, we put breakaway glass that really doesn't hurt anyone. And then we had to score individually, carefully, all the little pieces of the image, and then the plastic in front of the image in the same way. And then carefully tack them all with hot glue back again, and gingerly put them all back in. And then the stunt came through and smashed it all to smithereens, and then we had to do it all over again. We did it twice. I hope that when an audience walks away from this movie, they thought that we were fairly true to the game when they walk away happy. Oh, I hope the people who didn't know the game just thought it was a great visual movie and they didn't know where the influences came from.
There will be gunfire on this job.
For this project, we decided to go with some big guns.
I'm having a lot of fun. Personally, I don't like guns.
Get the guns out of my damn face.
But we love our guns. They're just so sweet.
If anyone ever tells you that guns aren't fun, they're lying. They're great fun.
I've never shot a gun before. There's nothing to it.
Try to hit him in the head. Yes.
No, shoot them!
20 different types of weapons we use in this movie. Everything from submachine guns, machine guns, up to heavy caliber sniper rifle, 50 caliber sniper rifle.
I got the power.
It was a really good mix all across the board, and it was important for each character to have something a little different. This is the one we chose for Carlos, and Carlos carries two of them. Big bang, big gun, big flash.
They're very noticeable. The first time you shoot these things, they're so loud and so powerful, you kind of can't help looking funny, like you're losing control and you're blinking. The last thing you want is action hero to be going,
Get points!
LJ got the pretty one.
Motherfucker, please, look. My shit is custom.
He got the same one, but it's gold. When he saw this for the very first time, he says, I gotta get me one of these.
Respect, man.
Big gold, nickel-plated Desert Eagles. I know how to use it for real.
I got 2 9mm handguns. Got 2 Uzis. And I got a shotgun on my back. I used them all more than once.
This is a Target 45 pistol that we modified, and that facilitates spinning. She carries 2 of these underneath her arms.
Alice has got to be able to get to her Uzis really quickly. You don't want to see Alice struggling with her Uzis.
And the last weapon that she carries is the shotgun. Mila had to pull it out of her holster assembly and then point it with one hand. And even with me, I have a little bit of a shaky hand because it is heavy. Mila was able to handle this, point it, steady hand, and have no problems with it at all.
Point, pull, repeat. That's all there is to it.
Joe Valentine spent hours and hours out on the shooting range. She's definitely got a guy thing happening with that weaponry, and she's very, very tough.
I'm trying to stay very true to character. I'm not allowed to shoot with 2 guns because a police officer would never do that in case they lost a weapon. It's great when you get it right. It makes you feel very good.
Every gun was big and loud. We had people, does it have to be that loud? The answer is yes, it has to be that loud.
It's 11, you have to stop shooting guns now. Like, oh, it's 11, stop shooting guns.
Ooh, there's rules. There's a real world out there.
My favorite gun is the railgun of the Nemesis. 3,000 rounds, just outstanding. This weapon generally fires 6,000 rounds a minute, but we've geared this down to 3,000 rounds a minute. The regular barrels have been cut down to 14 inches, and we've added all this aluminum furniture on the outside with the feed chute. It weighs about 100 pounds when fully loaded with the magazine and everything. We psyched our actor up saying that this one's going to be 100 pounds. He's going to have to hold it with one hand. And once we modified it all, it ended up only being fully loaded at about 65 pounds.
The first time I fired it was indoors in a corridor. Just because of the enclosed space, the pressure from the gun actually put me back a step. I wasn't expecting the pressure from it. I fired big guns, but nothing that comes close to that. Definitely not.
Resident Evil Apocalypse, the show is substantial in terms of visual effects. The goal was to make our effects as real as possible, as seamless as possible, push them a lot farther than was done in the first film.
I start off looking at the script, breaking down the work I see in there into potential visual effects. Some areas are very clearly visual effects, when those stray the way that you couldn't achieve it in camera.
My approach for the movie was to do it as realistic as possible. If there's something that we couldn't do on camera, then go and talk to our visual supervisor and see how we could achieve this on CGI.
We used a variety of visual effects techniques, every kind of digital manipulation you could think of. We had green screens, CG creatures, all sorts of CG objects, tracking, matte paintings, wire removals, screen graphics, miniatures, you name it, we have it. One of the more exciting sequences in the movie was the liquor sequence, which takes place in the church.
The liquors are back, more cunning than ever. Mina arena.